The phone rang at 2 in the morning, and my mother's voice tore through the speaker. "Caitlin, your brother's in the emergency room in Aspen right now. Wire $25,000 this instant, or he suffers through the night." I answered with a single word, calm and even. "No." Then I hung up, powered down my phone, and slept like I hadn't in years. For the first time in 3 decades, my mind belonged only to me. No echo of my mother's disapproval, no shadow of my father's quiet condemnation. My entire life, my family had used me as a walking checking account. I'm Caitlin Fletcher, a structural soils engineer based in Denver, and from childhood I was groomed to believe my sole function was to catch my younger siblings whenever they fell. My brother Christopher, 25, was the untouchable favorite. My sister Madison, 22, fancied herself a social media royalty entitled to a glamorous existence. My father Michael, a retired fire chief, stood by and said nothing. My mother Jennifer was the architect of it all, able to crush me with nothing more than a disappointed exhale. "You're the eldest, Caitlin. Taking care of them is your responsibility." I heard that line my whole childhood and absorbed it as truth. I bought Christopher his first vehicle. I bankrolled Madison's debut influencer trip across Europe. I erased their credit card balances more times than I could tally. I always gave in, because that's supposedly what a devoted older sister does. But that particular night, hearing their staged hysteria through the phone, something inside me hardened permanently. My answer wasn't shouted or furious. It was silent. It was permanent. And what unfolded afterward didn't merely shatter my family, it exposed the truth that they had never really been one. They were an operation, and I was their lone financial backer. That late-night call wasn't really a cry for help. It was the moment a lifelong illusion finally detonated. Lying awake in the darkness, my apartment's stillness drowned out their hysterics from earlier. The phantom voice of inherited guilt that had haunted me for 30 years had vanished. It used to brand me selfish for wanting to save toward my own house. It made me feel ashamed for booking a trip while Madison wanted a pricier camera. It painted me as a terrible daughter for daring to ask why Christopher couldn't keep a job past half a year. But that night, the voice said nothing. Only a deep, unsettling stillness remained, the kind that settles in after a tempest, leaving the sky scrubbed clean. I understood chaos was coming with daylight. I understood payback was inevitable. Yet for once, dread didn't touch me. I felt ready. Because once you've already sacrificed everything that mattered, all that's left to reclaim is yourself. That night, I decided my own worth was finally worth defending. Roughly 5 years earlier, I'd begun keeping a private ledger, not to manage my own finances, but to document every dollar leaving my account and landing in theirs. The total was jaw-dropping. $250,000 vanished. Tuition for degrees abandoned halfway, down payments on vehicles later repossessed, rescue funds for Christopher's so-called business ventures. Money poured into Madison's influencer travels that produced nothing but a pile of sponsored content and mounting debt. That ledger was my first real glimpse into the trap I'd been living inside. It wasn't simple love or familial duty. It was a calculated cycle of control that my mentor Jessica termed the cycle of dread, duty, and shame. The dread was rooted in fear of exile, of being branded selfish or thankless. The duty was the narrative pounded into me since birth, that my achievements weren't truly mine, but a shared family asset. The shame was their go-to weapon whenever I wavered. My mother could make purchasing a sofa feel like a crime against Christopher's $5,000 gaming rig. It was a flawless mechanism of manipulation. Jessica, a senior partner at my firm, spotted the pattern instantly. We were at lunch when a payment request buzzed through from Madison, $900, labeled Urgent Skincare Emergency. As I reached to authorize it, Jessica covered my phone with her palm. "Caitlin," she said gently but firmly, "they've stopped asking. Now they simply extract. You've conditioned them to believe your resources never run out." She was completely right. Requests had morphed into expectations, and my obedience was simply assumed. The breaking point began brewing 2 weeks prior to that midnight call. Christopher posted in our family chat that he and his affluent friend Ryan were heading to Aspen for what he called a mental reset weekend. Before I could respond, Madison jumped in claiming she needed to go too, for networking purposes. My mother texted me privately almost instantly. "Your siblings have earned this after such a rough year, sweetheart." Translation: prepare to fund it. I let the message sit unanswered. Days later, a picture surfaced in the group chat showing all three of them standing before a private aircraft. Madison's caption gushed about gratitude for a family that made dreams come true. A chill ran through me. I knew my parents' financial reality, and private jets weren't part of it, meaning someone was racking up a debt nobody could cover. I had a strong feeling who they expected to foot that bill eventually. From the second they touched down, Madison's online presence became a theatre of extravagant wealth. It wasn't a getaway, it was a fabricated highlight reel performed for her 2 million followers. They settled into a luxurious multi-room suite, and she filmed a sweeping video of marble fixtures, a crackling fireplace, and mountain views, captioning it "Home for Now." That evening, they occupied a reserved booth at a club, surrounded by sparkler-lit bottles of premium champagne. Christopher uploaded a shaky clip of himself hurling cash into the air while Ryan cheered nearby. Meanwhile, I sat on my couch in Denver, eating reheated leftovers and proofreading engineering reports for a bridge project. The disparity hit like a punch to the gut. The following day brought more excess. They leased matching luxury SUVs. Madison staged an entire photo shoot in a designer ski outfit, pricier than my monthly mortgage. They filmed themselves at the mountain's summit, toasting glasses, utterly disconnected from reality. During a lengthy work meeting, my phone lit up with a forwarded screenshot from an old college friend. It showed Madison inside a jewelry boutique, holding up a diamond bracelet, captioned with a playful poll asking, "Should I buy it?" My friend's accompanying message pointed out that this was the exact bracelet I had once shown my mother, hoping for it on my 30th birthday. She'd called it too indulgent back then. Yet here was Madison, ready to purchase it on impulse. That night brought the final straw. Madison shared a polished photo of herself and Christopher toasting wine glasses at dinner. A follower commented that her family must be incredibly supportive, joking that her big sister must be rich. The remark exploded with engagement, spreading rapidly through her audience. Those words seared into my mind. Strangers assumed I was bankrolling this fantasy, crediting my exhausting work hours and personal sacrifices for their reckless extravagance. They weren't just draining my bank account. They were hijacking my reputation, playing wealthy on my dime, while the internet painted me as their generous benefactor. I stared at that comment for several long minutes, feeling my anger transform from heat into something cold and unyielding. They had no clue what awaited them. They assumed the funding would never stop. They were about to discover otherwise, permanently. The next morning, I woke to a full-blown online catastrophe. The serenity I'd felt the night before turned out to be nothing more than the calm center of an approaching storm. Madison had escalated dramatically, posting an emotional, tear-streaked video from what appeared to be a hospital lobby. Her voice cracked with rehearsed devastation as she claimed Christopher was suffering in a hospital bed, and that I, a high-earning engineer, had refused to send the money needed for his care. She didn't stop there. She tagged my full identity, named my employer, and posted my work email publicly, urging her followers to flood my inbox with their outrage. The video surpassed 1 million views before my coffee had even finished brewing. Then the backlash arrived. My professional inbox flooded with hostile messages calling me heartless and predicting karma would find me. Unknown numbers bombarded my phone with venomous texts. My carefully separated personal and professional worlds were being incinerated by my own sibling. Yet I felt nothing. No panic, no fear. The version of me from before would have spiraled, apologized, and transferred money just to make it stop. This new version of me remained eerily composed. I sat down, sipped my coffee, and quietly began damage control. I didn't respond publicly or defend myself. I simply purged the noise. I blocked unfamiliar numbers, filtered work emails containing trigger words straight to trash, disabled comments on my own accounts, and switched everything to private. My boss, Jessica, texted around 9 with a link to the video and a simple request to call when free. I phoned her immediately and explained plainly that a private family matter was unfolding, the online narrative was false, and it wouldn't impact my performance. She responded with quiet support, offering HR resources if needed, no judgment attached. By midday, the digital chaos had faded from my personal sphere. I had constructed a wall of blocks and filters around myself. They could rage online endlessly, but I no longer had to absorb it. Their attempt to sabotage my career only confirmed I'd made the correct choice. They never wanted a sister. They wanted a financier, and I was officially stepping down from that role. The call that altered everything arrived Sunday afternoon from an unfamiliar Aspen number. I nearly ignored it, but answered on the final ring. A composed male voice identified himself as Officer Miller from the Aspen Police Department, calling about my brother. I kept folding laundry as he spoke. He explained that the hospital story was fabricated, that police had responded to a casino incident the previous night after Christopher assaulted a staff member, and that he'd used a fake ID and fraudulent credit application to secure $100,000 in casino credit, all of which he lost. He now faced felony assault and fraud charges, with bail set at $50,000 cash. In that instant, the entire power structure of my life inverted. Their moral leverage, built on guilt and tears, dissolved completely. This wasn't a family squabble anymore, it was a legal matter, one their usual manipulation tactics couldn't touch. I asked why he was calling me specifically. He explained I was listed as an emergency contact, and that Christopher had requested me, though his parents were present, but financially unable to help. I set down a folded towel and replied that his parents now had a problem of their own, that I wasn't his guardian or his accomplice, and that all future contact should go through Michael and Jennifer directly. I ended the call before he could respond. Minutes later, my father called from a blocked number, his voice frantic against my mother's wailing in the background. He insisted it was all a misunderstanding and begged for help. I told him plainly that committing a felony wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a deliberate choice. My mother grabbed the phone, screaming that I couldn't abandon my own brother. Years ago, that accusation would have crushed me. Now it meant nothing. I told her I absolutely could, and that they had created this situation themselves. I hung up and blocked the number permanently. Their control over me had finally evaporated entirely. My father reached out once more the following day, calling from a payphone, his voice cracking with confession. He revealed Christopher's long-time gambling addiction, the secret loans, the $200,000 borrowed against their house under the guise of renovations, all funneled toward covering his losses. The Aspen trip had been a last-ditch gambling attempt. They weren't innocent enablers. They were active participants in their own financial collapse. Now facing foreclosure, with Christopher staring down prison time, they begged me for $200,000, promising repayment for legal fees, housing, and rehabilitation, pleading that I not let them lose their home. Standing on my balcony overlooking the city, I simply said no, quietly and finally. After a heavy silence, he played what he believed was his trump card, reminding me they'd given me the $40,000 down payment for my condo, insisting that should count for something. That's when everything clicked into place. I asked if he'd actually given me anything at all. He broke down, sobbing, admitting they'd taken out a personal loan under my name without my knowledge because they couldn't qualify themselves, and had been secretly making the payments since. The revelation left me speechless. My down payment, the cornerstone of my independence, wasn't a gift at all. It was fraud, another hidden debt chained to my identity. They hadn't only drained my future earnings, they'd stolen from my past as well. That was the final, unforgivable betrayal. I said goodbye and ended the call permanently. Everything unraveled rapidly afterward. Without my financial support propping them up, their entire world crumbled. The house went into foreclosure. Madison's online empire collapsed once her fraudulent fundraising scheme surfaced publicly, costing her sponsorships and her audience. Christopher accepted a plea deal, 18 months in prison, followed by mandatory rehabilitation. I relocated to a new place across town, changed my contact information, and erased every trace of them from my life. The silence that followed was the most peaceful sound I'd ever experienced. Years of tension finally melted from my shoulders. 6 months later, I purchased a home entirely on my own terms, with a down payment that was truly, completely mine. I finally grasped that establishing boundaries isn't hostility, it's survival. They never viewed me as family, only as a resource, and resources inevitably run dry. My freedom cost me $250,000, and I would have paid twice that without hesitation.